Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Thursday, March 2nd, 2023. It is 1 p.m. We are in City Chambers, and I call the City Commission special meeting to order. Commissioners present include Commissioner McDowell, Commissioner Stokes, myself, Mayor Langdon. Vice Mayor White has been detained, and Commissioner Emmerich. There is a quorum present for this meeting. Also present is City Manager Fletcher, City Attorney Slayton, City Clerk Faust, Recording Secretary Powell, Police Chief Garrison, and half of his police force.
I don't think
And
it's
Fire
half.
Chief Titus, last but not
I
least.
don't think it's half.
There you are. Chief Titus, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm looking for a motion on the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the agenda as presented. Motion maker is Commissioner Emmerich. The seconder is Commissioner McDowell. Let's vote. And that motion passes 4-0. Before we move into public comment, I just want to remind anyone making a public comment that to, do it in a respectful tone. No profanities, no threatening language, no abusive language will be tolerated. And it's my responsibility as mayor to maintain that kind of decorum, not only up here, but also in the room. Also, I will not allow any commissioner or any member of staff to be singled out for abusive or overly critical behavior. If you feel it necessary to provide constructive input, please do it in a general way. Address it to commission, address it to staff. Okay, with that, we do we have any online public comment?
Yes, we do. Linda Knapp. In part to the police's credit, Northport is a great place to live, and I am not opposed to expansion or new site in general, but not now. We can't afford it now. We need time to recover, time to put our lives back together. We're still recovering from coronavirus, economic hardships and uncertainty, and Hurricane Ian. Long COVID and COVID infections are still part of our lives and don't appear to be going away anytime soon. We are unsure the cost of living and our incomes due to inflation and price increases in food, clothing, shelter, gas, insurance, and healthcare, including medicine. Our normal grocery bill was doubled lately, and we're not buying more than the basics. We have not come close to recovering from the hurricane damages, debris, street signs and lights, wayfinding signage, home damages, and lawns are dying now. People have problems with underinsurance, non-payment from insurance, and insurance company bankruptcy. What FEMA offered wasn't really much help. Citizens of Northport are now also suffering from health-related problems with injuries and cardiac problems. I understand that this project was undertaken before the hurricane and that Northport is growing rapidly, but this seems like a perfect case of putting your feet past your blanket. When the population grows, the revenue should also grow enough to take care of the city's needs. We are strained and more taxes could just put us over the edge. I also would like to have this matter discussed at the general meeting instead of at a special meeting. Little notice, scheduled in the middle of the day when those of us that can work are trying to, and lack of publication about this meeting make us concerned about the commitment to a united community. Please do not move forward on this without a referendum by our citizens and consider the timing. We're living in houses without floors that used to be our homes. That's all.
Thank you, City Clerk. We do have some requests to speak in-house. Mr. Doyle, you're first up. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon. I guess I'll say up front, I'm in favor of the new police headquarters, so I'm going to talk a little bit. I don't think the 3 minutes will do that. I guess I'll be saying that I think you should build a new building on a new site. That way it doesn't disrupt the police when it happens. and you can find alternative uses for that building there. And what I think is a good alternative use for the building when the police are done with it is lease it to the county so we can have a tax collector and a DMV with a bigger room where you don't have to make an appointment anymore. There's other uses we could use that building for. And when I went through the notes, it seems like you have a piece of property somewhere where you could build them a new building. Since I've been in town, I think the population has almost doubled. So I understand why they need a new place. The other thing I want to bring up is, like I said at the last meeting we were at, the impact fees. You have a $100 million project that you guys approved pretty much. I don't know what type of impact fees you guys collect, but to me, they should be paying in impact fees to upgrade the police station because they are coming into town. People who lived here have already paid for certain things. And when you develop, the reason why we need a new police station is because of all the development. So a lot of the funds, if you ask me, should come out of the impact fees that all these builders and all these buildings are paying, paying to the city to upgrade things because they are going to cost us more. And that's how I see what impact fees are supposed to do. So when people are worried about their taxes going up, the way I see this with all the building in town, our taxes shouldn't really have to go up for a project like this. It should be paid mainly through the impact fees. I don't know if you get my drift on that or not, but that's my personal opinion on it. The other thing is, I'll talk about the building afterward. So basically what I'm saying is we could use that building for something else, maybe get some revenue out of it, and we should be using the impact fees to build a new police station.
Thank you, sir. On to general business, number 23-0262, discussion and possible action regarding development and construction of the police station headquarters and the Emergency Operations Center. City Manager, this is your item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to turn.
I do have you scheduled for the specific topic. We'll invite you up for public comment before we vote on this matter. Okay, would you rather go now? Or do you want to wait? Sounds like you want to hear the proceedings. Yeah, I have you for the next. Oh, no, I have you right here. Thank you. Thanks, I appreciate that. Okay, City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to turn it over to our Chief of Police, Mr. Todd, Chief Garrison, to lead the discussion today and presentation of information regarding the headquarters.
Commissioners, Todd Garrison, Chief of Police. Thank you for your time and us being here. This has been a lot of work from the team, and we're excited to get in and share with you what we have found. Let's start the presentation. Yeah, so just by way of introduction, my name is Dean Roberts. I'm with a firm called MWL, McLaren Wilson Lowry. My firm is partnered with Ken Dean, you see over there, the handsome man with the light colored hair. And we're partnered together for this project. We're kind of like the national expert, and Ken is a really significant firm in Florida. So that we often do these projects as a team. And so MWL, our entire practice is about public safety buildings. So it's really a good combination of skill sets. All right, so with that being said, I'd like to jump into this presentation. And if you have questions along the way, I would totally welcome those, and we'll respond to those as you may like to see. So I always like to start out with, what's the assignment we were given as this team? We started in June working on this project, and as the chief pointed out, it's been a significant due diligence effort to try to come to really good conclusions. But the core of the task that we are given is to determine the future facility space needs for the police department and a new emergency operations center. So that was our assignment. I think it's always important to recognize the background. Many people in this room probably know this, but it's still significant and worth noting. The police department moved into the current building in 2006, which means the planning for that building probably began in 2003 or 4. It's a 2-story building. It's 32,400 square feet. In 2006, the population was 47,000. There were 79 sworn officers and 30 civilian staff. And in 2023, the city's population anticipated to surpass 84,000, significant growth. The police department now has 131 sworn, 49 civilian officers. Those numbers really matter because those are the folks we're trying to provide space for them to carry out their duties. It's of course well known in the community, but still meaningful to state that the increase in residential commercial growth and increase in PD staff, really, we've outgrown the police facility actually some time ago. And I think the other thing that's really significant facts to bring onto the table here, the city land area is 104 square miles, and it's only 30% built out. So there's a lot of growth. And again, I think everybody knows that, but I think we dug into the details of that to understand how to plan for the future. So it's quite a prevailing fact. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And the best numbers that we've got from the best sources out there projecting future population says that probably not going to slow down between now and 2070. So just some introductory comments about the study itself. Again, we've been working on this since June, so there's a lot of kind of phases that build on one another. We want to talk a little bit about the process that we went through because I think you deserve to know exactly how we did this. And one of the first things is answering this question: what are the limitations of the existing facility? And so we've delved into that. How big a facility is needed both now and in the future? And what is the cost of really two alternatives? We feel like due diligence is to study, hey, if we expand this building to take care of the needs in the current location, the expand in place model, or if we look at an all new facility, how do the cost of those two alternatives compare? A few comments about executive summary, so you don't have to wait till the end of the presentation to hear the facts and the conclusions we've come to, and really the highlights. But there is a process we went through. There's understanding current facilities, planning for growth. I guess I really want to say that now. I mean, I've been doing this for 42 years, and this is the unprecedented extent of growth in your community from all of the police facilities we've done. I might repeat that because it really gets our attention as people who plan these buildings for a living that, hey, we really need to be careful and thorough when we look how to plan for the future. And then you can see their current and future buildings size, site and building planning concepts, and then project cost. So we use this process where we've been doing this a long time, and our lesson learned is, hey, good process, good outcome, right? So we started to stay really consistent and thorough with the process, go through these steps in a proper order, and we can be more confident about the outcomes. Every community you can see there on the left has its own geography and population, which results in calls for service. Those calls for service is what the police department needs to respond to. And depending on how many calls for service there are, it tells us how many people we need in the police department to respond to those calls for service. And not just respond to them, but to respond to them in an expeditious manner. We'll talk more about some of the specifics of that. That really represents the community needs. It also tells us how many people we need. And the thing about the police department, it's not just an office building, right? They have duties that are different than someone who just occupies an office building. And so it's really giving space to accommodate the duties that they're assigned to carry out. And then we look at, how do we come up with the building space needs? How do we look at sites? What do we think about a project delivery method? There's more than one method. And all of that being taken into consideration, now we can project what we believe to be an accurate budget. So the first slide I want to highlight here is kind of beginning to graphically tell that story. So if you can see, you can see here that beginning in 2005, just before the current building was occupied, the growth was sitting down here under 50,000 at 47,000. And here's what the population is projected to do. Now, that's not me. I'm not really a demographer or a projection, population projection person, but there are experts in that field. Bieber is the leading prominent one here. And so we're kind of pulling on their data because they are experts in this, and they have a pretty good way of thinking about population growth for Northport. And the other thing, though, is there's this orange line, but then there's a yellow line that tracks along parallel. And the reason that's important is because calls for service are going to go up when the population goes up. You can look at any community that's growing, even slow growing. As they are growing, the calls for service is going to track right along with the population growth. And that's just how it works. And we talked a little bit about the building itself, limitations of the building. The size is too small. Well, how do we break that down? So since 2006, the best practices for policing have changed, right? And so we need to respond to different things than that building was designed to accommodate. And the scope of the PD services has expanded. Now we have mental health professionals that are coming aboard, so many of our agencies. Who anticipated that 10 years ago, right? So it's a good idea, but we now have to have a space for those folks to work. So I don't necessarily want to go into all the details. I'd be happy if you have questions of this, but I want to keep the pace moving along. What you may not notice is that you walk into the front door of the building and may look, hey, it doesn't look that bad. What's the problem? I think what you don't see is that people who work together are separated from one another. The reason for that is the police department have put in function every space in the building. And closets that used to be closets are now offices. And now that means that person is over there and this person's over there. So there's some natural inefficiencies that occur when these kinds of things happen. How much too small are we? We'll talk a little bit more about the numbers of that rolling forward. Option study. We studied two options. The expand in place on the existing site and new construction on a new site. A lot of times, almost every time we get asked, well, can't we just expand in place? And sometimes the answer to that is yes. We'll tell you why that's not the recommended way forward in this particular case, but we compare these things side by side so that the decision makers can have good fact-based information to make the decisions they choose to make. So a little bit about our study approach. How do we measure project success? We want to these are big guiding principles that we want to go over, right? It's all about good process, good outcome. And so we think about the process, how do we navigate the process? And what we recognize after doing this for a while, and it's kind of common sense, but still you learn things afresh. And it's really about good stewardship of taxpayer dollars. I mean, this isn't our money, right? It's everybody's money. And then engaging the right people at the right time in the process, which of course this is one of the important steps in that. Building design and site design, that's our area of expertise. We're confident we can be successful there. So we went through this process of determining, as you can see on the left there, the critical success factors. Look at that, and then and we sent out questionnaires to the staff. They're within the police department. We often find there's 15 to 20 working groups within the department. They all have different needs. So we send out questionnaires to those folks to get, these are kind of customized questionnaires that we've developed because this is kind of work we do every day. And we get great input. We follow that up with face-to-face interviews with the folks in their workspace. So we really have a good, thorough understanding of their workspace. And then we apply space standards that are used universally. And we kind of come to some conclusions about space needs, about site considerations, and project budget. Inside out, bottom up, we pride ourselves on being remarkably thorough, and so we think about it room by room by room and build this thing on paper and spreadsheets long before design gets underway. I think one of the big things to keep in mind, there's all these details and facts, but I think there are some big picture design outcomes, desired outcomes, and that is to relieve the near-term space needs pressures, because you didn't outgrow the building this year, you did that years ago, and create a long-term plan to gain operational benefits of an all-in integrated police building and site. We've learned that if we can get all of the police functions on one site, that there's efficiencies gained that allow the police department to do what they do more efficiently and more effectively. Now, if we're in New York City, we're going to spread out to multiple sites, but we're not New York City. This is Northport. So current facilities, just a few slides I want to go through with you. The police department actually has overflowed to their current building. They're using 6 buildings on 6 sites. Here's the kind of the synopsis of that. Of course, the most visible one is right next door. That building has 32,400 square feet. But they've got space in all these other buildings because they don't have enough space in their current building. And just again, we went into kind of at a granular level, understand the current buildings. The highlighted colors there are the communications center, the property and evidence storage, and then the evidence processing that staff members of the police department do. The second floor of that building, so again, it's a granular understanding, was our job to understand that. There's space in Fire Station 42 or 82 that's called PD2 because the PD has some space there. There's, of course, this wonderful new building in Welland Park, which, of course, we started to become familiar with that as part of this process. They're also using the community policing unit is occupying some office space in another building. Yeah, so I brought this picture back because this is kind of the template we use to plan for future growth. And so I'll talk more about exactly how we do that. I think we cannot overlook the significant reality. It's almost like we can't overstate the reality that there's 104 square miles and it's only 30% built out. So planning for the future is such a big and important deal. What that says to us as kind of consultants who specialize, slow down, be thorough, be careful, be sure you don't underplan and also overplan for the future. Okay, so kind of getting some of the facts, bringing the facts forward here. There's population, calls for service, and police department staff. These all track a parallel growth curve over time. And we broke this down into what we call near term, midterm, and long term, because that's kind of how these things roll out. And we ultimately have to decide, are we planning for near-term growth, midterm growth, or long-term growth? And not only planning for it, but what are we actually going to build for, right? So population, you can see those are numbers that were developed by Bieber and adopted by the city of Northport as their kind of go-to data resource. Calls for service track with that, so you can see that, yeah, sorry, I hope I'm not boring you with all these facts and figures, but they really are significant in kind of telling the story. So you can see by the time we get out to 2070, or even if we look at 2050, the calls for service is more than double what it is, at 2025. So that's because the population is growing. And then down here at the bottom in the blue, police department staff is also, there's a compelling need for growth. We break this intentionally down into sworn staff. Those are the ones that leave the building in patrol cars and respond to calls. And that's their front and center activities that they do on a daily date, and they're very professional at it. Civilian staff provide a lot of support in the building to help the whole operation be successful. But, we're looking at growing even between now and 2025 to 227, to 371, 497, 629, 799, 922. You might say, wow, those numbers are so big. How can that actually be true? Well, the facts are really telling a compelling story. And so we really believe that this is where things are headed. For those of you who like spreadsheets and a lot of granular information, here it is. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I think there is one little error that I need to point out here. We work through these sheets and try to get all the error, but there's a small one right in this area. That 1.022 should be 0.997. There you go. I'm sure you'll all remember that. Anyway, I think the big story here is to be sure that we've got all the correct data so that we're not making assumptions based on faulty or inaccurate data. And what this also talks about how we begin to grow the police department to get to kind of a comparable size of police agency, meaning number of staff with other communities of like size. And I could talk a lot about that because it's so important. So we drilled into that with pretty extensive effort. And we're really going with 2 benchmarks that are prevailing benchmarks both across the state of Florida and across the U.S. And they are about how many officers per 1,000 population do we need. And there's been a huge data process that's been done by the FBI. They've landed on a recommendation that we believe is a really compelling benchmark. And what they're saying is if we have 2 officers, sworn officers now, per 1,000 population, we're going to be right in the right range, okay? I think the other metric that tends to balance that out is response times. You know, we could have 2 officers per sworn and still have unsatisfactorily slow response time. That could happen because we have 104 square miles and the road system to get from east to west will develop and get much better over time, but it's not quite there today. So we're actually suggesting that we go slightly above that 2.0 per 1,000 to be sure that we can meet the response times that I think people in this community expect and are consistent with the goals that the police department has set for themselves. This graph, I intentionally separated away from the calls for service and population growth, but it actually follows a similar track. And the reason I held it here is I wanted to show you that other data first, but here's what's happening with police staff. It's going to track parallel to population and calls for service. We talk about efficiency and effectiveness, and I won't get into this a lot, but I think it's this big idea of carrying a balance, you know, of the police department really wants to be effective in what they do, but they also, there's this balancing aspect of effectiveness. And so, yeah, I could unfold that, but you might grow weary. So anyway, I think here's the thing that I put this slide up here. In the process, the police department has done a kind of a revisit and a refresh of their organization chart as they're trying to figure out how can we best deploy the people that we have to accomplish the mission that we've been given. And so they've done a lot of thought and planning to kind of prepare for the growth that's coming. So in summary, the current staff at 2022, at the end of 2022, the staff was 180, the near term 371, midterm 561, and the long term out to 2070, we should be anticipating a staff growing to 922. All right, with that information about staff, now we want to talk about building space needs. And I'm not going to get you, there's a 25-page document that has all the spaces included, but that would be way too much to go into here. So this is really the summary. So we put 2 milestones in here, 2035, the near term, and 2050, the midterm. And we broke this down into its parts. You can see, of course, the police headquarters, 911, telecom, property and evidence, and CSU means crime scene unit, and then also the emergency operations center. This is, all of these pieces are included in this project. And so what we found is that there's a need for 104,541 square feet at year 2035. But we felt like it was, you know, due diligence to say, well, what about at 2050? And at 2050, the growth is from 104,541 to 118,089. So you can see there's not a huge difference there. So by planning for the 2050 milestone, we essentially save ourselves the cost of an additional phase later. We can build that from day one, and I think it makes sense. I want to talk about the concepts we developed here. Again, it's that expand in place alternative and new construction on a new site. But before I just want to take a step back here for a moment and recognize, you know, this is not all about the numbers, right? I think there's some other factors that, of course, need to be considered in this process. And those are this idea of civic architecture. You know, this is a beautiful campus that this City Hall, the police facility, the fire headquarters are on this campus, and it's a beautiful space in the middle of the city. And, you know, that took a little thought and planning, right? And so let's be sure we don't miss that important piece of it that benefits the whole community when we look at this project. Process is really important. Security, you know, I've been doing this for 42 years, and security has changed, right? We all know that, right? And we've been in the thick of it, figuring out how to kind of develop new best practices. Operations driven. The police department has some complexity of operations. We need to really be careful that we consider that thoroughly, and then creating culture. You know, that's part of what leadership does, is create culture in organizations. And sometimes the building can frustrate leadership's desire to create culture, or it can facilitate the desire, the goals of leadership to create a really healthy culture. All right, so there we go. expand in place. What you're looking at here is one of a number of diagrams we studied, but just to walk you through it, of course, the blue footprint is the current building. This is the ground level of that current building, and of course, the parking space. One of the things we know about police facilities, they're very vehicle intensive. Not only the personal vehicles that everybody arrives at work in, but then the vehicles they use to carry out their duties. And so recognizing both of those, and then there's some specialty vehicles like crime scene vans and those kinds of things. So it's really important to preserve that space on the site for parking. And so one of the ways we thought in surface parking is more economical than a parking garage or a multi-level parking structure. So this idea said, hey, let's take the advantage of the economy of that, and then let's build, this was the second floor over here, let's build a new addition above that, link it up to an addition to the side of the existing building. So that was the concept, and you can see the metrics here of the square footage. I think one of the things that we recognize, this is putting a lot on this site. And so we can accommodate the building needs, but not all the parking needs. So in order to accommodate the parking needs, we do need a somewhat smaller multi-level parking structure over on this property, more for the employee vehicles, not for the operational vehicles. So, and then here's the idea, what if we built a new building on a new site? We wanted to do this initially because, of course, the city doesn't own property for this project yet, but this was kind of a prototype. Hey, if we had a site, how big of a site would we need, and how would we lay it out? And so we did that study, and that's what this is. This is a layout for how you could do a new building on a new site. Of course, there's some economies in the fact that this is all surface parking, no multi-level parking structure required. And we went into a little bit more granular study here because you can begin to see these colors are denoting the square footages of each division, like investigations, like crime scene, like 911, like all of the pieces and parts that are necessary to kind of pull the whole building and the operation together. All right, so having done all these, we're kind of building each step on information that we're working to prepare, and now it's talking about budget. So here's the numbers. So again, the blue tells you the expand in place alternative, the green tells you the new construction on a new site. And the interesting thing is, if you look at the bottom line numbers, this one for the expand in place, 92 to 105. The reason we're doing a range instead of one number is because, we've all heard what's happening in the construction market, right? And it's really hard as we're trying to project out multiple years ahead to get a specific number. So we believe best practices is to plan a range of costs. So that's why it's not just one number, it's a range. But if you look at the bottom line of the expand in place, 92 to 105, and you look at the new construction at 90 to 106, the costs are actually virtually the same. Why is that? Well, I think somebody actually mentioned it earlier on, is the police department has to move out and lease temporary space during construction because there's no way that they could continue the 24-hour operation while construction's underway. If you think about it, that just makes sense, right? And then the other thing about that building built in 2006, the building codes for police facilities, fire stations have changed dramatically. And it's a good thing because they're more resilient to the storms that we experience. But to upgrade that building to that level of quality is a significant adder on top of conventional remodeling. So there's some big cost adders, which is why these numbers for the expand in place are rising up to the level that they are. So new construction, then you can see the numbers there. We did do a quick look out because it was like this answering this what if question. What if we had to wait? We can't do this today. We have to postpone it to a future time. What would be the cost of that? And so you can see this is kind of an estimate of what the cost would be. So we go from 90 million to 106 to 115 to 128 for exactly the same building. So it just tends to reinforce the fact that building today, there's an economy to gain by doing that. This graph is not one we borrowed this from the construction industry. It's a Construction Analytics Building Cost Index. And what it shows is, these numbers, as we track all the way back to the early 2000s and all the way up into here, are the kinds of things that we've historically seen in the construction market. Going from, the late 2018, 19, 20, it's all of a sudden it started going up. And I think the reason that's important is because if we look at another building in another community that was built several years ago and we try to think that, hey, we're going to build something for that cost, that's not possible anymore. Everything has changed and it's going up. And as much as folks who work in the construction industry would like to predict that, hey, it's going to level off, maybe it'll come back down, we cannot say that that's going to happen. It seems like that's not likely to happen. And speaking of other communities, we did visit several buildings in the process. We can learn lessons from other folks have done in other communities. Some of those communities having significant similarities to Northport. Cape Coral is kind of growing ahead of Northport. We're on a similar track. They're just a little bit ahead. And so it's important to, what lessons can we learn? And, here's an example. They built a building in 2009 that cost $21.6 million. If we built that very same building today, it could potentially be 3 times plus that amount. That's really hard to wrap your head around, but that's actually the factual numbers that we're seeing in the market. Okay, so let's talk about pros and cons of expand in place versus new construction. So the pro of the expand in place is we don't have to buy additional land. Land is expensive, but there's several more cons. And temporary quarters would need to be temporarily provided for the police department during remodeling. And phased approach will take longer. Because you've got an existing building, you're building on top of a parking area, and you're doing an addition. It's just a little bit more complex and therefore takes longer for construction. The building isn't currently hardened to essential requirements. That's kind of architect language for saying it won't stand up to today's storm construction requirements. And and at some point, additional activity is too intensive for the site. We believe that at some point you kind of trying to put too much on a piece of property. We feel like the expand in place is going there. And so that's a con. It's more expensive than new construction. So let's talk about new construction. The pro is the facility could be more ideally located in response to calls for service and based on land availability. The current PD building would be available for use by other departments. I think that's the thing. It's almost like this found opportunity. Instead of having to build another building for growing city departments, we've got one, do a little bit of remodeling, and it's just like this found opportunity that saves a ton of money, tens of millions, I believe. And it's less expensive, the new is, than the expand in place, and allows for maximum efficiencies in flexibility in a new floor plan. We could remodel that existing building for the police department for the next 20 or 30 years, but there's going to be some compromises. You can only do that so much, right? A new building, we get a fresh start. We can optimize the efficiencies with the new floor plan. So this is a kind of a concluding slide here. This kind of summarizes some things. We're saying that the current building was built for a staff of 109. Right now, we're at 180. That's a lot of growth. And guess what? More growth is coming, as we've already touched on. 371 in 2035, 561 in 2050. So we believe that the city is an important decision point, kind of like a fork in the road. And so while the building next door, it was actually probably a great decision when it was made. And it served the city well for a long time. And the city essentially got their money's worth from that building. So it was a good use of funds. But here we are, all this time later, now we're at a decision point. We're at a fork in the road. And the big decision is, should we stay on this site or should we move to a new site? And I think some of that is kind of self-evident, but I just want to bring that out to the front because we feel like that decision point is a significant and critical one. As we look forward, what's a kind of ideas about timeline, right? So there is election coming up in 2024, which would be an opportunity to go to the voters. Always ahead of that, you want to have sufficient time to do some voter education, right? And then if you think about, okay, what about designing a facility? How long does that take? What about bidding and construction, and what is the timeline? So even if we started right away and we went through these steps, it takes several years to occupy. So it says to me, the sooner we get underway, the sooner we're progressing towards our goal of occupying a new facility that meets the needs of the police department. So that's all the slides I have. I'd welcome questions.
Okay, thank you for that very informative presentation. Just so that the people listening in and the people here in the room, we all had an opportunity to go through this presentation earlier with staff. So we've already had one round of Q&A with the folks providing this data, just in terms of background. Before I open the floor to commissioner questions, I'm anticipating that there will be a lot of questions and comments from commission. So we are going to follow our usual practice of questions first. We'll exhaust those, and then we'll go into comments and suggestions. Also, too, with questions, rather than doing our usual 10-minute rule, I'm going to rotate the questions through commission. And what I mean by that is I already see Commissioner Emmerich, top of the queue. He'll have one question. Vice Mayor White will have a question. Commissioner McDowell, et cetera, and then we'll start over again. So we'll see how that works. I don't know that we've done that before. It's a test. Okay, so time for commission questions. Commissioner Emmerich.
Yeah, now I got to rethink this.
I did that to keep you on your toes.
No, that's fine. I know you're looking for direction and stuff like that with the presentation. And basically, you're looking to go out for referendum in the election of 2024. This way, there's citizens' input. But have you sought a location on where a new facility may be placed within the city? Have you looked at areas?
Great question. Yeah.
We are generally looking at areas and trying to find properties that are available, but it's, until we get the direction actually move forward with that, I can't stand here and give anything concrete.
Well, I didn't ask if you bought anything. I just asked if you were looking, so.
Can't hear you.
Yes, we are. So, yes, we are looking at properties. We would like to keep it centrally located within the city. The challenging part of that is what properties are available that can fit the footprint that we're looking for.
I just wanted to hear what your intentions were, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor, I saw you second and then you fell off.
Because I thought I didn't have a question, but I do. I just have one question then.
Okay, go ahead.
Relating to the land, did you go over how much land was needed? I'm sorry, did I miss
Yeah.
that?
We think you need 10 acres. We
10
might be able to
acres.
get a little less than that, but it's a little bit of what's on the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's a larger property on the market, that might be the best choice.
Right. And then I think your con was taking it off the tax rolls if we buy property, but that's going, how much lost is going to depend on what it's zoned for already, correct? If it's zoned agricultural, it's going to be less of an
Yeah.
impact than, and I can't see us taking a commercial property off.
Yeah, excellent
or
point.
off.
You're right. I mean, if it's agricultural land, the impact on the tax roll is way less than commercial land, yes.
Right, okay, that's it for my questions.
Yeah, good question. Commissioner McDowell?
So obviously, we're going to go to a voter referendum because we're going to have to get bonds. Okay. So I also was curious about impact fees because we can use impact fees for this. I thought of it at the meeting, forgot to ask for the impact fee reports. I know this is going to be the first of many conversations. Obviously, impact fees is not going to come up with $100 million to pay for this. I recognize that. So if we go out to bonds, and we've already established the assumption that impact fees will not be able to pay for this, how will the bonds be repaid?
Refer to Kim Humphries, the finance director.
Kim Williams, Finance Director. I apologize.
It's like Kim Humphries.
I apologize for the casual. I enjoyed the employee appreciation luncheon earlier. So I apologize, I didn't see the request for those reports earlier. I've just requested them from staff. I know that I did look at the law enforcement impact fees about a week ago. The balance at that time was $362,000. That's in the non-West Villages part. But that is committed to purchasing of vehicles. That's where we've funded historically all of the police vehicles from. So I don't see that that is a large enough pot that will be able to get a significant amount.
So how will we repay the bonds?
So the
I mean,
only,
if we go out for bonds, we got to be able to let the voters know this is how we're going to pay for them. Has that been
Actually,
explored?
Commissioner, I think that's one of the tasks in front of us today is to identify those potential sources, but City Manager, you look anxious to weigh in.
Yes, I was going to say, Commissioner McDowell, that is correct. And what we're looking at as we look at how we sort of get to where we want to go in this situation is how do we pay for it? I don't believe there's going to be a one method way, whether it's some impact fees, whether it is a bond for a lower amount, but the amount that is in question that is needed, if we were to use all of that as a strictly bond, it would raise the millage rate to a percentage that we would, bless you, most of us, all of us up here most likely are going to be uncomfortable doing. So we've got to figure out a different way to do that. But as we go forward to bringing you those conversations back during the budget, when we have some better and deeper information, not better information, but some more fleshed out information, we'll have that and some scenarios as well as some land opportunities and some prices that will come along with that as well. I don't want us to skip over the piece of buying the land because the director would say, please don't skip over that step because we have to figure out where that money is going to come from as well.
That's my next question.
Okay, and you're going to wait for your next question. Mr. Stokes is up.
Well, in the study, I mean, it talks about population growth and the need for increased staffing. Can somebody speak to how this relates? You look at, people are going to say, well, if we add more officers, they're going to be in vehicles, they're going to be out in the city, they're going to be doing their jobs. Why do we need a new building? They're not in the building. But that's not really true. And if you could, or a number of you, speak to that issue, because I think it's important people understand how important it is to provide all those support services to those officers out there doing their jobs. And that really impacts why this facility is needed.
Yes, thank you. Good question. I think to me, the way I start responding to your question is recognizing that the department has divisions and units. Patrol employs the most total staff. Those are the folks that are spending nearly all of their time out on the street. And yeah, they have a lot of staff in that division. They need a proportionally less space in the building. It's not that they don't need the building. They show up, they have locker rooms, they have briefing rooms, they have report writing areas, they have the sergeant's workstations, so that's the complement of space they need. But detectives spends most of their time in the building. They are, of course, out in the community doing detective work, but they are more office users. 911, they spend all of their time in the building. If you look property and evidence, the officers bring stuff in that is processed by the evidence processing folks. And the amount of space they need per employee is much larger because they've got analysis laboratories and storage of evidence. And so when you kind of begin to break it down into the layers, that's when it becomes quite evident that the building is a necessity. I know that some people, they look at a police department and they associate it with a police car. But when you know the rest of the story, and this is what we do for 40 years, it really is understanding all of the building space needed to carry out the duties that they've been assigned to do. I could go more into that, but I'm trying to speak broadly. I think it's really, it's an important question because the general perception is police folks have cars and that's it. Well, you got to dig a little bit deeper. And the more you do that, the more it becomes quite evident that a building is a significant kind of tool in the belt of a police officer, if you will.
Sarah?
I have a question, again, about impact fees, and I'm not sure if it's for Ms. Williams or for city attorney. But when we collect impact fees, it's not in a single huge fund. It's allocated across needs and departments. So my question is, are we able to move money from one fund to another? And if so, what would it take? I had a feeling I had an answer to this. Is it a state statute or is it city ordinance that
So
dictates that?
Yeah, it's the impact fees and what they're allowed to be used for. And I can't quote the authority, but it basically is law of how they can be spent. So law
But
enforcement.
again, if it's a city ordinance, we can change it. If it's a state statute, we're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
City
Yes.
attorney?
Commissioners established by state statute and
I was
supported by
afraid of
case
that.
law.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Commissioner Emmerich?
Yeah, I didn't have any more questions. I'm just getting in line for comments.
Okay, great. Vice Mayor?
Yes, I do have a question, and then are we going into comments?
When questions are done, yeah.
Yes, I had a question about if we had a bond, this would be similar to the road bond that we're currently, I don't know who could answer this for me. But the road bond that we're paying, it's $49 a year, and that was a 25-year commitment that is on our tax bills. And would that be similar to, could that be considered similar to, we also have a fire district assessment, correct? Plus, the fire department gets general funds as well. So we don't have a police department assessment, though, separate. So could that be considered, I'm just thinking about number-wise, speaking to my commissioners here to think about that, if there was a separate amount for a bond to pay for a police department building, plus they still get their general fund allotment, that would be the same as the road bond that we're paying, which is actually road and drainage, but that's a whole separate thing. Could that be how that could be considered, or are they apples and oranges?
Vice Mayor, I think there's an informal poll going on amongst the group. And I believe we none of us believe a police, a law enforcement assessment would be able to be accomplished, but it's something that, again, we would need to come back and give you a definitive
Right,
answer.
but I was also thinking in lines of, that's a road bond that we pay that's on every single property, correct?
Correct.
$49, which is essentially like a road assessment, though that's not what it says. So in terms of thinking of having a bond for the police department, would
Right.
just be almost like the same thing, that this is to pay for the building, just like that road bond was just for road, nothing else connected with road and drainage. We wanted the roads fixed quickly and get it done. So that would almost be the same thinking.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's how the police department and this building were built, with a bond, and that's how it was.
Yes, right. But that wasn't tacked onto that wasn't a separate thing. It was a bond, but we borrowed against something. Commissioner McDowell might remember that too. Because yes, we had to vote for that as well, yeah. But the road bond is definitely on our tax bills every single year. We see that, or people could have paid it off, I think, at one fell swoop if they wanted to. They had that option. So I'm just thinking in terms of finance here, and how to pay for this, just throwing that out there.
Good, thank you for
All right,
that. Commissioner McDowell, you're next.
Thank you. Vice Mayor was going down the same rabbit hole I was thinking. If we do a special assessment for the building only, not police operations, not police cars or anything like that. It's a special assessment on our tax bill, just like the roads was a special assessment on our tax bill, strictly and only for roads. I don't know if we, and I see the fire chief coming down, if that assessment for the police building could include EOC, which is, I guess, going under the fire departments. I don't know. But that would be an option, I would think, to be able to pay for this, to be able to go out for bonds, because I would not be in favor of raising the millage rate for this. So I'm just, you know,
I think we understand that position, Commissioner, and we're going to bring you back some options and some answers to those questions. We just don't probably have all of them today, but we understand that is a very serious point.
Well, today is identifying, and then there'll be work to be done to bring back the best.
so basically all we're doing today is telling the police department, yes, you may proceed with purchase, whichever, build in place or build at a new location. But in order to make that decision, I have to look at how are we going to pay for this? Because if you don't have a viable option on how we are going to pay for it, how can we make a decision that which way to go? There's a component missing.
So I think today, when you look at the staff summary of what we're asking you for today, the first thing says authorize the purchase of property. While we're not asking you which property to purchase today, they need direction and your approval to go seek out a purchasable land piece that will meet the needs of what we're trying to do. They're also authorizing the consultant to prepare the 30% site drainage and construction plans. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir. Design.
Yeah.
30% design build of the actual building for the site that we choose once we bring back that site to you all for approval, and also the funding to purchase that land, which, as we said, we do have sites available, but as you guys all know, it's becoming very hard to find that size parcels of land in our city. It's becoming challenging. So that's the direction we would need. We would need to act on that fairly quickly.
Okay, Commissioner Stokes, a question?
Yeah, in that same vein, just to clarify, really the purpose of this special meeting is to, one, give direction to, and it's just really a question, to identify land available to build. Not approval to do it, but to find it. And secondarily, which of these two options we're going to pursue, because obviously if we're going to build in place, then we don't need to go find a piece of property. And it's limited to that. The issues of finance, as was pretty much answered, and I don't mean to make a speech, is that that's the subject of a whole nother animal that we need to sit and talk about before hard commitments are made on things, because we do need to find a way to pay for the bonds or an alternative method instead of issuing bonds.
Right, we need to either, we're at that fork of the road, we either need to make a decision to expand in place or take that right-hand turn and look for the future and go to a new site.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I think today it's the police department needs authorization to purchase property, not to build at this point.
Correct.
City manager.
And Madam Mayor, if you say yes, we authorize you to pursue the purchase property option, then the team here will then identify a property, they'll negotiate a price, and then they'll bring it back to the commission with the information for you to make a decision upon.
Right, it's not an approval to purchase, but rather to go find a property to purchase and bring us the information.
Correct.
I have one more question, and that is, looking at the current CIP sheet on this project, we currently have, if I'm reading this right, $1.3 million allocated toward the purchase of land, correct? And design engineering. Is this the money already in place for the purchase?
Correct.
And we need how much more? We
So,
think.
Yes, so Mayor, we would need to to include the first two item actions, which is the purchase to identify land, bring back, and for 30% design, we would need an additional 2.7 million.
Yeah, and I also see on the CIP sheet that the current funding source, the money that's been set aside, is from surtax.
Yes, ma'am.
How will our recent referendum to dedicate surtax monies to the repayment of the price widening, does that jeopardize or impact these funds in any way? This is a Ms. Williams. Come on up and tell us.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so this is already set aside out of surtax. I think we're in 3 now. We just approved 4. Okay, got it. That's a relief. Thank you. Any more questions? Commissioner McDowell.
You honestly think $1.3 million is going to be enough money to buy land and do 30% design plans?
No, I think he just said it was a
No,
funding
an additional on
gap.
We have, on 1.3 that we have, we would need additional 2.7 to cover the 30% design of the headquarters with the EOC and the additional money to secure land.
Right.
Estimated.
Okay.
Estimate, yes.
When I was looking at this, there's a CIP out there for the EOC. And I'm curious how much is funded for the EOC building. I thought there was a separate CIP for the EOC.
Fire chief is on his way.
And while they're convening, how can we do design plans if you don't know the size of the property? It's,
So to answer your question, design, that's when you would secure your land once we vote, once we find the land we're going to purchase, and you all vote. Once you know that, then the design team would start on that land with the 30% design of the
so why do
building.
you need the approval today for design plans when we don't even have the property yet? You haven't
We
even
would-
identified property.
We would do it both right after we purchase the vehicle. I'm used to purchasing vehicles. Purchase land, then the team would then know that that is the land what we're going with, then they would start the 30% design build of that, to include stormwater, site prep, all that, and the 30% design of the building.
So where's the $2.7 million for design plans coming from?
So Shingle Schultz, who we have the agreement with, has provided us with cost estimates for the 30% design of the headquarters, which is approximately $933,000, and the EOC, which is approximately, I think, $285,000. And then the remainder would be the additional funding we need for with the 1.3 we have to secure land.
Just to make clarification too, the figures that were given to you also include anywhere between $2 to $3 million on that price tag, the final price tag of the project for land.
Construction
I'm
costs.
sorry, you guys are throwing out all these numbers all over the place, and I'm trying to wrap my head around
Okay.
it, and I'm not succeeding, and I apologize
That's
to my
okay.
fellow commissioners who are sighing.
So what Chief is saying, Commissioner, what Dean had showed you on the screen here, it showed the 90 to 105 million. In that 90 to 105 million cost, that's a total, that 90 million to 105 is a turnkey. That's everything included. You walk in, furniture, computers, everything. That also includes 2 to 2.5 million, I'm not sure if it was 2 or 2.5 million in land acquisition. So by putting that money in the front, you're now dropping that down a little bit because we're securing that land in the front.
Yeah, but just to say, I think to answer your question, or hope to help answer your question, the money that we have, that we've identified, we just said is not enough to get the project done the way that we need to. We are in the process now of identifying other funding sources to make up that delta, all of which will have to come back to you for approval because we believe that we may have to reshift some priorities in order to get that done. Just like I said with the option of the purchase of the, construction of the building itself, we're having to do some sort of internal shuffling regarding the purchase of the land. And we'll bring that back to you as well as we move forward through the process.
Commissioner, Assistant City Manager Julie Belia wants to answer your question on that, the importance of the 30% design build when you purchase, when we secure land and we have identified land. So I think hopefully she can clarify that, the importance of that.
For the record, Juliana Belia, Assistant City Manager. Having gone through the road bond and having some experience with that, typically when you go through a bond procedure, you're going to be giving a deadline from the time you're awarded the money to when your construction needs to be completed. So we looked at this timeline in the schedule, and we calculated, number one, that they need to purchase their land. That's something they could do ahead of time. But the design permitting and all that, if we could at least get started with design up to 30%, by the time we go, if we were to get the commission's blessing to go forward and have the bond question on the referendum in 2024, we would have some of that design work done. So should we be awarded the money? Because they're going to tell you, you have to have this construction completed by a certain deadline date. We had for the road bond, for example, we were given 3 years. We didn't complete it in time. We had, I think we had a hurricane in there or a lot of rain or whatever. So we asked our bond counsel for an extension. We were granted 2 years, but we had extenuating circumstances. I don't know if the police department would have that luxury. So that's why we're trying to time things. Should we get the necessary approvals to meet the bond counsel's deadline?
And if I could stay on that same subject, Mayor, with
Go
my
ahead,
question,
Commissioner.
it's the exact same subject that we're talking about. So $1.3 million we have budgeted, and that has to go to pick up land, correct? Are we expecting the land to cost the full 1.3 million?
No, it's going to be more. So between the 900,000 and 285,000, that's about another, 1.3 million. And then we would need an addition, that remaining, 2.7, sorry, my math's off right now.
Right. 1.3.
1.3 on top of that would go, we need 2.8 million to secure land, Commissioner. And that would be the additional money for that.
Okay, so we need, thank you. We need 2.7 for land.
Yes.
And then you want us today to approve the 30% design plans also.
Yes.
How much is the design plans?
The headquarters is 933,000, and the EOC is approximately 285,000 for 30% design build.
Okay, so you need 2.7 for the land,
Yes, ma'am.
approximately
Correct.
1.3 for design. So you're up to $4 million.
Yes, ma'am.
Go back to my question. If you're seeking the approval to do this today, where are we getting the money? I can't approve something unless I know where the money's coming from.
Now, that's the question I answered earlier when I said that we would have to bring back to you the option of how we would pay for it. But without your approval to move forward, there's no point in us even trying to explore where to pay for it, because there are projects that we will have to discuss if we are to move forward with this within the funding that we have available. If you don't want us to move forward with the project, there's no point in doing any of that.
Well, of
That's
course
why
I want you to move forward with the project, but at the same time, you're asking me to give authorization to say, yes, go ahead and find some locations of land, and yes, go ahead and start your 30% design plans.
Let me say it differently. For the $4 million that we're asking for this project, we're not asking to spend any of it before we come back to you. We're not going to spend any money until we come back to this board. But if you give direction today that says, hey, go find your land, tell the consultant to prepare to get ready, because once we find the land and we approve the land, then they can be ready so that when this board gives the blessing, that we can move forward. No money will be spent until it comes back.
Perhaps if I read.
Hang on, Commissioner Stokes. So question asked and answered. Is this a question or a comment?
I was hopefully a point of clarity to help Commissioner McDowell to rephrase a little bit about what
Go ahead.
city manager said. We're not making any commitment to spend $4 million. We're simply doing two things today, deciding which of the two options are available, and if the decision is made to do a separate site project, then, or then we're giving direction to go find us some property that's available.
Right.
That's really it. We're not going any further than that until it's brought back to us. So there is no commitment to spend $4 million. That's, I think,
And I appreciate that because that's
Right.
really not what I heard in
Right.
this conversation.
yeah.
You're asking for authorization to go out and try and find land for the 2.7 million, which I get, still has to come back to us and we still have to approve it. But by also saying, hey, we're going to do the design plans up to 30%. And my first question was, how can you do design plans if you don't have the land? And it still went on, we're going to do the design plans. So,
We just want that to be included in the initial process of your decision-making in the beginning.
So that it's not a second step.
Part of that, but we're still not committing to it.
I'm sensing that questions are drawing to a close. Are you all set, Commissioner McDowell? I'm going to move to comments.
I have a ton of questions, but it's, at this point, it's sounding completely irrelevant. So it's regarding the bond and going out to bond in 2024. I'm hearing a need for now. We have bonds that are out there for Price Boulevard now, which are going to be hitting the streets. We have the road bond that we're still paying for. We have a need for bonds for water control structures, and now we're going to be issuing bonds for the police station EOC. I am curious, because this is part of the conversation, all these bonds that are out there, one, what's that going to do to our bond rating? Two, if we're going to be putting 2 bond referendum questions on there for the water control structures and the police station on the same year, that scares the bejeebers out of me, especially after hearing the public comment, because that is the mindset of all of the citizens in the city. They are personally recovering, and their pockets are very low. And we're asking them to dig deeper to pay for this stuff, which we know absolutely has to be done. To do 2 bond referendums in 1 year seems counterintuitive. I'm wondering if we could do a bond this year referendum and a bond referendum next year. That way then it's breaking it up so it's not such a shock to our citizens.
Let me, I guess this follow-on question is for a city manager. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this in a lot of things as we get into the budget conversation, because it's becoming really clear to me that to do this, which I think we would all agree is really a top priority for this community, other things are not going to get done. So I think your questions, Commissioner, will be part of that overall conversation. And I think we're going to have some pretty long meetings when we're into the budgets. So I think at this point, I agree. I want answers to all of those questions too. But I also want to have those answers in the context of what are some other funding options that might lighten that load. But my sense is that's way beyond the purpose of today's meeting. And am I clear on that step? So.
Yes,
okay.
Madam Mayor, and those conversations, and we've had them to begin internally, we're gonna have conversations on timing, does it make the right sense to do this now? We got into this position because we haven't addressed it sooner, and I can almost guarantee you, if you were to ask anyone, why wasn't it done sooner, the answer is, well, the timing wasn't right. Well, I can tell you right now, there are gonna be people who will say the timing isn't right now. And if we wait a year or two, and if the problem gets any worse, guess what we're going to say in 2 or 3 years? The timing isn't right. It's never going to be right. It's never going to be perfect. And we have to understand that. But if there's a way to make this, more digestible for everyone involved, including the taxpayers and the police department as they try to service a city that's growing very fast, we've got to have those hard conversations.
Right.
And those conversations are only going to be answered by the decisions of what we want to share as a burden with the taxpayers. What do we want to reduce ourselves and our spending as your government? And what do we want to put our public safety officials in the place of as it relates to their service levels of response to this city to make sure that everyone stays as safe as possible? All of those things will have to be in the answer, I think Commissioner McDowell is seeking, that we will have to bring forward sooner rather than later.
Right.
I have a follow-up question.
If it's brief. Go ahead.
And if we are to decide, we cannot wait until budget workshops for the decision on the bond, because there are statutory requirements for creating ordinances and filing it with the supervisor of elections. So if we're going to do it this year, we have to make a decision probably in this meeting or the next meeting or the meeting after, as to put on a referendum in November.
My comment would be that in my brief time here as a commissioner, we've had some experience with referenda. And between now and November, we need to have some really difficult conversations with our community. We're going to have to make some really tough decisions on how we proceed. And I'm not anticipating that we would go to referendum this year. It would be the 2024 cycle, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So.
Well, in addition, I think the time that it takes to educate, about the process itself is going to be a little more lengthy one.
Right.
As we have conversations this budget cycle, there are budget revenue opportunities that we have not maximized, such as the electricity tax that is not at its highest level. You may say, well, I want to use that as a way to make sure that we pull up our revenues. No decision, of course, has been decided upon, but I think that we're going to have to put everything on the table for you guys to decide. It's not going to be easy.
So let's shift into comments.
I have one more question that I'd like to ask that may help Commissioner McDowell and other people who may be somewhat concerned. Am I correct in the assumption that before a decision is made to spend $4 million or commit $4 million to purchase a property and do whatever planning and design, that we will, as a body, review the issue of how to fund this entire thing before that $4 million is committed to? Because it would be in my mind, wouldn't make sense to commit the $4 million to spend until we figured out how to pay for this whole thing. I think that's the concern Commissioner McDowell has, and perhaps other people who may be watching or listening. And I think I know the answer, but I'm asking the question.
I can answer that, Commissioner. All property acquisitions come before the commission in the form of a resolution. So even if the manager or anyone on his team went out to negotiate a property, it would come back to you.
That isn't the question. The question is, will we figure out how to spend $130 million, how to find and pay for a $130 million investment before we make a $4 million commitment? That's the question.
Yes, and if I haven't been clear, let me say it again.
Yeah.
We will bring you options back that will let you know the impacts of that decision and how best to fund it.
Before the $4 million is brought before us to make a firm commitment on.
Even it's at the same time that we bring you back the
You got
information
it.
on the resolution, they will be there together.
That wasn't part of any of the conversations.
Right, but I thought that's where we're going. That's why I said it.
Yeah.
Well, I would also
I just
add on
wanna
to
say
that.
that
What I'm hearing is we are really running out of opportunities for properties of a size
That's
that would
what I would
accommodate.
do. Yes.
So in my mind, we need to purchase property. If we don't build for 8 years,
Mayor,
we need
yes.
to purchase
Exactly. I
the
agree with
property
that.
now.
As long as we know how to pay for it all.
So,
Right.
yes.
That's all.
I think
Well,
what,
I don't even care if we're still figuring it out, how we
Yes.
pay for the rest of it. We need to get that land now, or
So,
we'll be.
Correct.
I think,
out of luck.
Mayor, what we're also looking for is that first action item which is securing the land is for staff to proceed,
Right.
commission telling us to proceed
Yep.
with negotiations on identifying land and telling also staff to find funding for that at the same time to look, to find the funding for that, which we can start doing that and bring it back to you. And the 30% design on action 2 is the commission telling staff to identify funding for 30% design and to come back, and that also to come back with you with that. And then if, hopefully, like the CM said, that would be simultaneous.
Right.
Yes, I have my best finance director on it as we speak.
Yes.
Okay, so any burning questions left over for today's conversation? I usually wait to speak last, but I'm just going to make a brief comment. These are tough decisions. This is not an easy job. And sometimes we just have to take a leap when we don't have everything figured out to a detail level, because opportunities close and you just have to have your foot in the door. And so sometimes we have to take a leap without being able to answer every question that people might have about what direction we're going in. And it's not a comfy, cozy place to be. Okay, comments, Commissioner Emmerich?
Yes. Part of this was, we're in the fork of the road, and my comment on this is I'm in favor of offsite. I see it as a win-win situation. We are so handcuffed with space on all of our departments, City Hall, Public Works, Parks and Rec, Building Department. There are many, many needs that can go into the existing building. And in the long run, if you look at it, could be saving us $50 and $60 million in adding those structures for expanding those departments in the future. So I think by going offsite into a new location, it is a win-win. As the public commenter said about the county services, we can negotiate with the county and they may be able to expand. I'm not into leasing the whole building because we have a need, but they may have a bigger office or whatever as the plans draw out. You know, we don't know what that is until we make a commitment to, okay, you guys are moving and they'll be moved in before you're gone. I mean, that's the need that we have here. I would look at, you know, Toledo Blade area possibly as centrally located within the city. It all depends on where you can find property, but, you know, it is what it is. You know, I would like it center mass in the city somewhere. So that's my priority. So I would be in favor of going off-site, giving you the directions that you all need today. We're not committing to any funds. It's just getting the ball rolling. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the hard work. And it is a need. It's been a need for many, many years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor, you're next.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, really good presentation. I appreciate the numbers on there. I especially appreciate the comment again by the presenter that a new building today, or not going for the build on site, eliminates the need to build in the future, because again, this is what the city historically, unfortunately, has done, is put things off until it got to be an emergency situation. Even we talked about the road bond. You know, when I first moved here, it was, I think it was a $41 a year road and drainage fee. I mean, that was not adequate to take care of our needs, as we found out, which is why we have that road bond. So at some point, you know, we have to put on our, what do they call it, big boy pants?
Big girl pants.
Yeah, and,
Boy pants.
right, one of my favorite expressions is penny wise and pound foolish. My son always says, some people like to jump over $1 to save a nickel. You know, we have to stop doing that, and go for that. Also, the numbers, when I looked at the, compared the population of the city, that was given 47,000 and now it's 84,000. That was a 50% increase in population, but our number of officers increased about 60%. So that just tells me that it's a very efficiently run operation, that we don't have an enormous amount of officers compared to the population. So that seems to have a real positive correlation there. So the fact that they're coming and saying we need a bigger facility, I think those numbers themselves validate that need. And we're only 30% built out, that was said. Yeah, that's kind of scary to think about that. And also the more people, I appreciated the comment about more people creates more of a demand on service, and it's not positively correlated to the, just because we have more people, we have more service calls. Those percentages have gone up. 2018, it was 89%. 2022, it's 94% of the residents made use of calling the police department for whatever reason. So those needs are going to go up. I've always, told people cost money. The more people you have, the more it's going to cost, and it's not an even thing across the board. And then when we talk about people, our residents, I know are still recovering, but I have to remind people that when we were going through those initial stages right after Ian, we had our police department out there, we had fire and rescue working 24/7. So we need to have a strong building unit and force so that we can continue to provide that service for people when we need it the most. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner McDowell, final comment?
Yes, I agree 100%. Start looking for the land. Time is of the essence. I wanted to throw out an idea. I don't know how much land is out there, but we really need to also look at efficiency of service. And I remember early in my commission start how much time was spent going from Northport to the sheriff's office to transport for jail call, for transporting offenders. Maybe we need to look at talking with the sheriff to have an ancillary building here. So that way then we aren't having to travel. No other municipality has to travel as far as we do. And if we can possibly partner with them and have an ancillary jail here, so that way instead of going up 10 times a day, you're going up once. And also possibly having it co-locate with a fire station, because if we're looking at Toledo Blade, having it co-locate with the fire station and have it a emergency complex building. And maybe having the sheriff's department partner with us might help us with some of the costs. We pay taxes to Sarasota County also, and this might be an option. As far as all of the other things that are listed here to do, there's some things on here you will not get my vote for that's listed in the legislative text. To authorize the preparation of the 30% site drainage and construction plans, not until I figure out and get told how it's going to be paid for. This is saying they want to get started on doing design plans. That's the way I'm reading it. The other one is initiate the process for the referendum. I can't do that either until I know how that's being paid for. So there's a lot of things that are saying they want to get started now on, not until we have that conversation on financing it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stokes, you're up.
Well, I want to thank you folks for putting this together, because this is a really good presentation. A couple of notable points. Just in the 20 years from 2025 to 45, we're looking at 270 new members of staff, officers and civilian. That's more than we have right now. That's a 100% increase. Furthermore, just in the 10-year period from 25 to 35, it's 144. And as we talked about, the need for support services that help to assist officers, I mean, there is no doubt that we need to do something. We're talking about, in 7 years, a growth of 23.3%, with an increase of 20,000 new people in our city. I mean, those numbers are staggering. So there's clearly the need. As far as the process, I wouldn't want people to think, not to contradict Mayor Langdon, but it's not really a leap. This is a process that we go through. And the way I see it is, this piece today is to give direction, to go identify. There are only a handful of properties out there that meet our specifications, that are even out there. Maybe only a couple that are even available. So it's not that easy to do. We need to go identify that piece. At the same time, we need to decide which of these two. I mean, we're making the presumption we're looking for a new site, but that decision should be made today so we can then give direction to go look for the site. Concurrent with it, we're going to be figuring out where all this money is coming from. The 4 million as well as the, 130 million it's going to take to do this, because without that, nothing moves forward. And that is a challenge that's going to involve a whole lot of time by a whole lot of people. And that's concurrent. Hopefully that can be resolved, because I would hate to be in a position of making millions of dollars of commitments without knowing how the entire package gets paid for. I think that would be a tough lift, and I really think Commission would have a tough time with that decision. So time is of the essence when it comes to figuring out how this whole thing is going to get paid for, because we got to do it. We just better figure out how to pay for it in a timely fashion, because if the opportunity comes to buy the right property, we better know how we're paying for the whole thing. Because who wants to throw $4 million down the drain? And that's what our constituents out there are going to question. The public's going to say, do you really need it? There's a perception issue here, which we all understand and know why the need for this facility is there. But they aren't, and they need to understand that. And in order to do so, they need to feel we're being responsible with their dollars. So as ASAP, we should be figuring out how to do this. And I don't know that it can wait till the budget process. I think it needs to be done like immediately. We need to be figuring this out. This is a staggering number. And higher priority than this, not that this isn't the highest priority, but by God, after Ian, if we haven't figured out that infrastructure is the highest priority this city has, and that's going to take some serious money as well. So, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, everybody here knows that, but for those listening, this commission is diligently looking at these things. This is not an easy process, as the mayor said, and we're going to be very careful and methodical in the process we go through. We're not going to waste money. We're going to think this through. We're going to keep our priorities straight. So that's the end of my speech.
I just want to remind everybody that we're in budget workshops next month. So that there's not a whole,
Budget
Nice.
workshops start in June.
I'm sorry, assumption, sorry.
The assumptions
strategic
is
planning,
later.
Sorry, wrong words.
I was like,
Intention was right. So for me, we know we're going to do this. Exactly when and how, we still have to fill in some blanks. So that's where I'm landing. Before I ask for motions, City Clerk, do we have any online public comment? Okay.
Powell Morosco. City of Northport is a great place to live. There is plenty of activities for families with kids as well as for elderly, but I don't feel like this is the right time for big investments in our city. I feel like we need to seek cuts in spending money. We haven't recovered from COVID-19 pandemic yet. We were hit hard by Hurricane Ian. We still don't have street lights working, street signs, debris. Cost of home insurances went high. The inflation is causing increased costs, particularly everything from food, diapers to gas prices. We can't afford to pay more for real estate taxes. In my opinion, we should wait another 5 to 7 years before starting a big investment like a police station headquarters. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a couple of public speakers in-house. Linda Knapp? Yes. Finally. You can come right up here, ma'am. You have, see where the podium where the police officer is standing, and you have 3 minutes.
This is unfortunately my first rodeo. And
You'll do fine.
And I have high blood pressure since the hurricane. So I'm standing here on behalf of about 100 friends and neighbors in Northport. And while we support the police and appreciate the police, we can't take more taxes. So however you're going to fund this new building, which you should have, after trying to repair our houses, just get a new house. It'll be faster, easier, and cheaper. Okay? It's been horrible for everybody. And everything costs more than 3 times what you think it was going to cost. So we can't really take, now we have medical problems. People fell, hit their heads, broke their arm, cracked their ribs, bleeding from the eyes, all post, because they're waiting for insurance to pay for the floor. So they hit the concrete. And hats off to the EMTs that came and got us. We cannot take more. Did you buy eggs lately? Milk? Forget butter. It's out of the budget. Find another way. I like the impact that you talked about. You need a new structure, you need good communication, and you need good people to run it, because until an hour before this meeting, the public comments button didn't work on the website. The people in Northport are getting it done. We're being neighborly, we're united, we're helping each other, we're making friends out of it. We appreciate everybody. But this isn't over yet. My cardiologist said that people have been dying after the hurricane. Part of the problem is the stress that we can't afford to keep our houses. So please don't add more taxes on already stressed people. Please, I beg you, from all my neighbors and friends who are out working, and I'm missing work to be here, put it in a general meeting, make it after business hours, so that the community can be united on making this decision. It has to get done. I moved here 15 years ago to take care of Mom who had a stroke. I got Dad for free. I would love to see all the sites in Northport. I know where the hospitals are. I need you to do your jobs so that we can do our jobs and maybe get a little time off to meet together as a community and have some fun at some point, because it's not today. These are hard decisions. These are hard times. They need a new facility. They need to keep up with the technology. Make it happen, but fit it in with all the other taxes we're already paying. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Perfect timing. You're like a pro. Mr. Doyle, you're next.
There hasn't been more people that I've seen in this room that's been more critical than me of the departments. But the reason why I'm critical is because I'm just trying to make them better. I'm not against them. I think you should buy land immediately, and then we can figure out what the building will be. Because I am pro-police. I want everybody to realize something here. As our city grows, our property values will go down if we don't have a good police department. I think everybody's missing that part of this. So we do need a good police department. They need the facilities. So I'm telling you to buy the land. The other thing I will tell you is, I don't know how much land you guys have, small lots that we've accumulated over the years. Maybe we should have a fire sale. Sell some of the small lots where people can build houses on them or something. I mean, again, I don't know what's on the inventory for the city. But maybe we need to sell some things on the small lots to bring money in to buy a bigger lot for the police department. And so when you're trying to figure out how to finance this and how to pay for it, look to see what properties you have on the books that maybe we could sell to recoup some money to buy the new lot for the police department. And again, I'm not for remodeling that building. Every building has a lifespan. A building that we are building right now is probably only going to last 50 years. I don't care what, after 50 years, how many people are here, the building will deteriorate. You're going to have to rebuild again. Every building has a lifespan. So when they're looking at building a building, the building is probably only going to last 40 to 50 years. So we got to remember that. But I would say make it oversized in case you have to do anything. I would not make a small building. I would make it oversized, even if you leave a quarter of the building empty for nothing right now, but I would build the bigger building. But we need to get the land And I would try to get more land if there's a bigger lot, just to have it. Because sometimes you need a bigger lot to do more on. If you don't have the lot, or if there's, like over the years, I've been able to pick up the properties next to me. I'm lucky. A lot of people couldn't do that. Once you buy the lot, you might not be able to pick up property next to it. So you really need to get that lot. And I'm almost out of time. I do have more to say, but I'll do it after the thing. But we should buy the land immediately.
Great, thank you, sir. It's time now for us to start making decisions based on commissioner comments. I'm going to request motions on each of these 4 items separately. So I'm requesting a motion to authorize the police department, the city, to move forward on purchase of property. Do I have a motion maker?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to research viable and various site locations with discussions with the fire department and sheriff department for partnership considerations for the new Northport Police Station.
Do you have that, City
Well,
Clerk?
hold on. They like jumped when I said that. I'd like to get their input before I continue.
That's because, Commissioner McDowell, when you mentioned the sheriff and the option of him joining us in this effort, there's been conversation already with the team, and that's not a viable pathway that we believe should be included in the motion for us to go forward.
Okay, so now I have a question. Why would it not be a viable option? For the past 5-6 years, I've been hearing about the time and expense of going up to the jail multiple times a day. Why would it not be a viable option to work with the sheriff department to partner and possibly co-locate to save that expense?
The sheriff shut down the South County Jail because of the redundancy and the cost to the overall budget. And
That was the old sheriff.
However, the current sheriff was the undersheriff at the time, and he was directly involved in that entire process. He still supports that methodology, and he's not interested right now to open up any type of South County jail system. And he is a constitutional officer, and that's his prerogative. We've had several discussions with him and conversations, and it's not viable for him to do it. But I'm not the sheriff. I can only share with you the conversations that I've had with him.
Commissioner, I think
I will
the
restate my motion.
simplest- If you keep it simple, the chances of us passing it are much better.
Make a motion, Mayor, to authorize the city manager to research viable site locations for the new police station.
Second.
Have a motion on the floor to instruct staff to research locations for the new police department. I want to make sure I'm getting this right.
Authorize the city manager to research various site locations for the new police station.
That would include EOC.
EOC's already slated to go in somewhere else.
Yeah, without the EOC. Do I still have a second from you, Commissioner Emmerich? I need to discuss this. Does someone else have a question or comment before I go?
I have a comment. Why would we be instructing city manager to proceed with the identification of a potential property when we haven't decided which of the options are before us? Isn't that
Well,
the
my
first order of
comment would
business?
be they're already researching properties. What they're asking is the authority to purchase.
But we
to go ahead
haven't
and
even
purchase.
decided, although it's fairly apparent, but I think it requires a vote as to which of these two options we're looking at, no?
That's what I thought, but the mayor wanted to talk about the property first.
Yeah, I mean, it just really, like,
City manager?
I think Commissioner Stokes is asking, do we want it, is it your approval, which is what we are suggesting, is that we build a new property versus expand the property in place. So if you
Yeah, that's
agree to
the
that
first
one, then we would.
Then we
First
can
thing.
move
we
to
would
the
go
second
next
one.
Okay, so we'll add that would that help you out, Commissioner, with your motion?
My first motion was going to be to instruct the city manager to go with the option to
There you go.
build a new location. That was going to be my first motion, but you jumped right into the property, so I was following your lead. So if I can scratch my motion and save it and start at the beginning of what we need to do, and that is to give authorization to build a new building for the Northport Police Station as opposed
On a
to
new site, right.
expand in place.
Well, I would simply say that the authorization to purchase assumes a new location.
Don't want to assume.
But if
Yeah, we
my
have,
fellow commissioners are more comfortable voting on the preliminary step first, then someone have at it.
Make a motion to,
I need to pull my
Yeah.
second from the original motion. That's
Are you
okay.
willing to pull your
I'm going to
second?
pull my second,
Okay.
then you need to pull your
I
motion.
pull my motion.
Good.
Now we
Let's
can
start
start
over.
over.
Now we
Thank
can
you.
start all over. Thank you. I make a motion to proceed with the new facility needs for the Northport Police Station to expand at a new location to be determined.
Do I have a
Nice.
second?
you do.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to instruct staff to proceed with the plan to build and expand in a new location.
City Clerk, to proceed with the facility needs us for the Northport Police Station, expand at a new location to be determined.
Do I still have your second,
You do.
Commissioner Stokes?
You do.
Okay, anything to that? Then let's vote.
Sorry, my screen was frozen.
There you go.
There we go. And that motion passes 5-0.
I may do my next motion,
Go ahead.
authorize.
May I say something, Commissioner, before you
Oh,
make your second
certainly.
motion? Just to be clear, when we say, and as it is written, the authorize or the authorization of the purchase of property, as you stated, we are already researching. What we're looking for is your approval to negotiate and then bring a negotiated agreement back in front of you. So therefore, we are not just getting out in front of your decision on the purchase of the property. I don't want you to say authorize the purchase of the property, and then it sounds like we're going to go out and purchase the property. I think we've all been clear
Okay.
today that we're not spending any money without coming back before this board for proper permission and approval.
But how can you negotiate if we don't know how we're paying for it?
We can negotiate the price of the contract with the land. They don't care how you pay for it. All we need to do is get the price, and then we should be able to come to you and say the price is X and tell you at that time how we're going to pay for it. And then at that time, give you options and considerations about how that piece of the property will lead to the bigger construction of the building itself. And also, not that we would get into this situation, hopefully, but if you decide to buy the land and we do not give you the comfort level of how we're going to pay for it at that time, you can always resell the land. Not that we want to do that, but it is not an investment that you're going to make that would lose the city money that would be out of that money. Just for a little bit of clarity, I will. Thank you.
Almost to have to be able to negotiate before you can come back and figure out how you have to spend it, because you don't know how much you need until you negotiate. But that doesn't mean you're making a commitment. It's a discussion or a negotiation. That's all.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I have the floor?
Go ahead.
When we were doing the research on purchasing the property for the utilities building, we had presented to us multiple options of option A, option B, option C, the pros and cons of option A, option B, option C. the costs of option A, option B, option C. The commission then decided, you know what? We really like the location of option B. And then we gave direction to go and negotiate. It happened very quickly the first time around, and then they went to negotiations and things kind of fell through the cracks. And then the commission gave the next option. To just say, hey, go ahead and negotiate without us seeing what the options are is, it's not the proper process.
Clarification, city manager, I am remembering that situation, but I also remember that they were properties already owned by the city.
No.
It was for the new transfer station.
No, I was talking about for the utilities building. They had come back to the commission with options of, here's where we can build, here's where we can do this, here's where we can do this. These are the pros and cons, these are the estimated price tags. Which do you want us to proceed with so we can start negotiations?
Chief, do you have something to say? Oh, you were looking very anticipatory.
I actually do, if I may have permission to speak.
You have it.
Sometimes it's in the words we use. That negotiation, I mean, takes on many definitions. Perhaps it would have been better stated to pursue the identification of the property and the price point or range of price point we're looking at, because that's really what we're doing. Negotiation makes it sound like we're negotiating the contract.
That's what we're doing.
We really aren't at this point, because it's got to come back to us before then. It's semantics, but again, it's more perhaps accurate to say we're authorizing the pursuit of identifying the property and the price at which it's being offered. I mean,
Which is the negotiation.
of course it is.
You have
Of course
a
it is.
landowner and they're trying to sell it to you, you have to negotiate with
Of course
them
it is.
for a price. If we come in here and say, hey, well, they're willing to sell it to you for $1.5 to $1.9 million, you're gonna say, well, which is it? What is the price? And you're gonna have to negotiate with them to bring something back in front of you.
There is truly a difference between negotiating the price somebody wants to sell you something at and the price you want to buy it at, and negotiating the finalization of the deal. There is a distinction there, and that's the point I'm trying to make. I don't want anybody to misunderstand that we're just authorizing the purchase, because we're not. We're just authorizing finding it and negotiating a price so we know exactly what it's going to cost us before we figure out how to pay for it.
One of the difficulties of having staff bringing back a number of different properties is we can sort of impact the price negotiations when we do that. But one of you would like to speak?
So
Two glowing
we
faces.
know how painful the process was with utilities, and they're still not in that area. There's not many properties out there for us to look at. And some of the properties that we're looking at, other people are also looking at. So time is of the essence. If we continue to delay that, then we're not going to have a footprint anywhere within the city that we actually can put a police department in a central location of the city. And that's the problem. Could we eventually build somewhere else that's not centrally located and it goes against, like what the commissioner wants? So we're very, very limited of what properties that we can look at. But we have to have that ability to seek that property, negotiate whatever that sales price is, and then come back in front of you guys to execute those contracts.
If Commissioner McDowell is struggling with this motion, would someone else like to take a shot?
Negotiations is coming back to the commission with a contract. That is what negotiations is. We've done it in the past with various properties that the city.
Commissioner, you do not have the floor.
May I have the floor, Mayor?
No, ma'am.
May I try to make a motion?
Yes,
Maybe
please.
help. Make a motion that we instruct city manager to authorize the identification and debate with the owner of the property identified for a price that can then be brought back to the commission. Second.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to authorize city manager to work with staff on the identification of a location for the new police headquarters and bring back a price for approval to the city commission.
It's not purchasing.
Yeah, I have something to that. but
Okay,
Yeah,
add to
I
it.
had a second.
Yep,
Well, this gives the opportunity for the police department to go out there and research the property,
Right.
find the property that suits them best, because they're the ones that are going to be doing the work out of that building. And we are limited to minor properties out there, so we need to get on the ball as quickly as possible. I see no issues of them going out, negotiating a price point, and then coming back and saying, hey, this is what it's gonna cost us. Do we have your blessing, commission? This is how we're paying for it. This is all the preliminary activities that they're gonna go through, and I have no issues with that whatsoever.
okay, city clerk, would you repeat back the motion and then we'll move to a vote?
To direct the city manager to authorize the identification and debate with identified property owner for a purchase price to be brought back to commission.
Great, thank you. And the motion maker was Commissioner Stokes, seconded by Commissioner Emmerich. Any final comments?
I'd like to speak to the motion, Mayor, if I may have the floor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So when they bring back the price, are they bringing back a contract for us to approve at the same time? Because if time is of the essence, and if we have to wait a month between the time that they come up with this price and then negotiate a contract and bring it back to the contract for commission's consideration, we may lose the property, which is,
Deputy Chief, you wish to comment?
That's typically how we do it. You would have an agreement that would come back, and we would make sure that agreement has the terms in it that we as a city want to accept. We will make sure that it goes through the legal process, and then you would make your decision based on what we're presenting, if that's something the board is willing to accept. Am I missing something? Yeah.
That resolution I mentioned earlier quite often has a purchase agreement as part of it.
so do I still have the floor, Mayor?
Go ahead.
So we aren't going to see the other options that could be for consideration to purchase. You're coming back with one that you think is best.
Well,
And there could be others that when we hear the pros and cons, we may say, we really like this better. If they come back with something that says commercial property and we're going to lose the commercial property tax base and the commercial property buildability, are we going to approve that?
Well, the authorization to purchase still has to come back to us.
So I'm looking for options, so that way then the commission can weigh it and determine the pros and cons, because like everybody has said, there's not that much property out here, and the property that is out there, the majority of it is commercial.
the answer is yes, I am going to bring back the best property that suits the need of the police department in the future. That is correct. But we are taking everything that you're saying in advisement, and I'm pretty confident that you're going to be pleased with what we come back with. But at the end of the day, you guys are the decision-making factors, and we don't buy anything unless you guys vote yes. So if we come back in front of you guys and you guys don't like the property, you vote no, then we just go back out looking again.
As long as everybody's understanding that that might be the way that it's going to go, and it's wasting time.
And that's the problem with coming back with option after option, is we don't have the time. We are very limited on parcels that are out there. You got to remember, we are the second fastest growing community in the country. And every investor in the world is looking to invest in Northport right now and buying up all that property. So that's what we're dealing with. It's like we're in a race to the finish line. Who's gonna cross the line first?
Thank you, Chief.
I think it's time to vote. And that motion passes 5-0. We have another item, which is to authorize Schenkel and Schultz, and the engineer of record, to prepare a 30% site drainage and construction plan. Is anyone moved to make a motion on that topic?
May I have the floor?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't think we can move forward with preparing a 30% site drainage and construction plans because we don't have the property and we don't know how we're going to pay for those site and design plans. I think that's a moot point. I think we have to wait until we have the larger conversations.
I'm going to recognize Commissioner Stokes, but let's go back to our buttons just to sort of keep
Yeah,
things orderly.
sorry about that. Perhaps we could make a motion that is contingent upon exactly the issue Commissioner McDowell is raising. I can take a shot at it if you want.
Go for it. I don't see any of the lights on if you want to give it a shot.
I would make a motion that we authorize the engineering firm to do give me the words, site
To prepare a 30%
30%
site.
site survey. Yeah, let me write that. A 30% site drainage and construction plan, subject to the identification of the property and the approval by the commission of the purchase of that property. With the implication being, I'm really adding on, the implication being that we have figured out how to pay for this. I mean, it's all contingent on doing that. But if we authorize this study, it gives us the ability to like expedite that process once we've made the buy decision. I mean,
Can I try to
please
distill
polish it
that
up.
for you a little
Please
bit?
do.
Let me make sure this sort of fits what you're trying to say. To authorize staff to work with the engineering firm, Schenkel and Schultz, to prepare a 30% site drainage and construction plan contingent upon City Commission approving the purchase of the property. Does that do it? Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
You okay with that, Assistant Chief? You're sitting there questioning something.
Just to confirm on the 30% design, you're also missing the component of the EOC. So I just want to mention you word the EOC in there because if we come back, that would be both projects that they would do a 30% design on as well.
Let's amend that.
Commissioner Emmerich, are you willing to give up your second?
I'll give up my second if he wants to amend the,
Okay, go ahead.
And I'll defer to you to reread that since you were much more succinct than I was.
City Clerk, why don't you
Read it
read
back.
what you have, and I think that might move us along.
I don't have the engineering firm written in here because I don't know how to spell it. So I'm just going to say
That's all
engineering. To authorize staff to work with the engineering firm to prepare a 30% site drainage and construction plan contingent upon City Commission approval of the purchase of the property.
We want to add the EOC in there.
Insert.
Where do you want me to add the OC?
To prepare 30% drainage, a site drainage and construction plan, including the EOC. I think that would do it, subject to.
Okay.
Okay, I think the motion maker is satisfied with that. Is that still good with you,
I'll give the
Commissioner
second, yes.
Emmerich, as the second? Okay, let's vote.
Can I speak to it?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
It's premature. We can do this when we approve the purchase of the property. We can have a separate agenda item. That way then they will have how we're going to pay for the site plans because they don't have any idea how they're paying for it yet either. So we can wait until they bring forward the property with the negotiated price and have a second agenda item that says that they're going to have the site plans and we can approve it at that time, knowing how we're going to pay for that. We don't know how we're paying for it.
Well, it's still contingent
I understand the
on the purchase,
contingency.
and when we make that vote, we'll know how we're paying for it. So I think it's more efficient, they can move ahead.
Yeah, I would add the comment, it's really a matter of being, of expeditiousness in the sense that, you know, we're not authorizing this until we know how we're gonna pay for it. I mean, that's really the bottom line. But once we do that and make that decision and know how we're paying for it, we can immediately be off and running. There could be a delay of up to a month's time potentially if we don't do this now. That's the difference. And we're not committing to anything because we really aren't. We're just committing to do it once we approve the purchase of the property. But we're never approving the purchase of the property until we know how we're gonna pay for the whole property. So everything's contingent on knowing how all this gets paid for, but we're stacking up all the approvals so that when that decision's made, we can roll this out in as expeditious a fashion as possible. That's the way I see it. I mean, anyway,
I think it's time to vote.
Yep, call the vote.
I'm good.
And that motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner McDowell dissenting. Anything new or additional to add?
The reason for my dissension, Mayor, is because you just authorized them to proceed with the design and construction plans, site plans. There's no way of knowing how this is being paid for. Once we approve that property, they've got the green light to proceed with the design plans.
Item number 4, identify all funding sources for the design, permitting, and construction of the new police headquarters and EOC.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Identify all funding sources for the design, permitting, and construction of the new police headquarters and EOC.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Make a motion to instruct the city manager to bring forth financing options for construction of the EOC and Northport PD.
Could you repeat that, Commissioner?
Manager to bring forth financing options for construction of the Northport Police Station and EOC.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor made by Commissioner McDowell to instruct the city manager to bring back financing options for the construction of the new police headquarters and EOC, seconded by Commissioner Emmerich. Anything to that?
Yeah, I just thought,
I have a question.
I do a point. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
well, I'm the seconder, I get to
Yeah, you go
first.
first.
Yeah, I thought this was gonna come down the pipe anyways, so I mean, it's just putting it on the record that they've been instructed to do so, so I look forward to all those options and stuff, so it's coming anyways, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Emmerich. Commissioner McDowell?
No need.
Okay, Vice Mayor White?
I just had a question. If that includes construction, do we specifically have to say design and plan, or?
The whole thing, they got to come back for the whole thing.
Your sheet said design, plan, and construction.
Right. The motion maker came back with construction.
It's all,
That's sufficient?
construction is construction. You can't construct without design. And you've already given them authorization to do the first 30%.
I just want to be sure, because I know we're going through every little detail that it doesn't come back and bite us and say, hey, you didn't say design and planning, you just said construction. That's okay? It's okay.
I'll amend it to include the full
Do I have a
design.
second from you, Commissioner Emmerich? Would you withdraw your second for an amendment?
But I thought it was fine the way it was.
Yeah.
That's fine, I'll vote.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner McDowell.
The
You want to
city
restate?
instruct the city manager to bring back all funding options for design and construction of the Northport Police Station and EOC.
Second.
Second. Okay, if there's nothing
Backwards.
to that,
There is one thing to it, just a point of clarification for me. This is to approve funding options, but is that separate and apart from, that's opportunities or ways in which we would fund this, but what about pay for it? Is there a distinction there, or because, or are we asking for, I guess I'm looking for the definition of funding options, because I see it as different. There are opportunities to fund this property, but then how does the city pay for it? Are those two separate things? That's,
City
I guess,
manager,
my
go ahead.
question.
No, Commissioner Stokes, they're all the same way as we look at it. How we fund it will be how we pay for it.
Perfect. That's all I
And
needed to,
It could be from multiple, it will be for multiple streams of.
perfect then. That's what I wanted to make sure. That's what I wanted to make sure.
Assistant City Manager, do you have something to add to
Ye-
that?
Yes, Mayor. In the motion, in the recommended motion, we use the verbiage, site drainage and construction, 30% plans, because that's what Schultz and Shingle, and that's a very typical standard verbiage for when you're asking them to prepare 10%, 30%, 40, whatever. So in that, we should be specific. If you want to break it up into all the different types of phases, design and permitting is another phase. What we're asking is to proceed forth with 30% site drainage and construction plans. That's what the verbiage should be.
That was already proved.
That's correct. That's how it should remain. The design and permitting is a different stage. We're not there yet. So the original one was correct.
So what you're stating is that we do not need the design portion in
Yes, sir.
the second
We do.
motion?
Yes,
That's
we
what
do
you're
not.
recommending?
That's what I'm stating.
Right.
Yes,
That's
Commissioner
why I
McDowell's
said
correct.
I thought it was fine in the first place. but-
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I will restate my original motion, if my motion maker would please pull his second.
I will pull my second for the second time.
Thank you. Instruct the city manager to bring back all financing, funding options for construction for the Northport Police Station and EOC. Yes,
30% plans
that was
are
the
for.
prior motion.
Okay,
We
site drainage
That was
and
the
construction
previous
plans.
motion.
Okay,
We
that's what we're
already approved
asking
that.
for. Okay,
No, we approved that in the previous motion.
That's the one I dissented on.
That was separate.
okay, but that's what we're asking for permission to proceed with.
You got permission
Got
to do
permission
that.
already.
This is to have the city manager bring back
The
to the
funding
commission
options.
what all the options are that are available to us to decide the best path forward.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you. Did we get a
And I
second?
will second that for the third time.
Thank you.
I think we have beaten that to death.
I voted already. Anybody else want to join me?
Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. One more item on the list. Initiate the process for a referendum for a general obligation bond to be placed on the 2024 general election ballot.
Won't get a motion from me. Have fun with that one.
How do commissioners feel about that? Comments? Oh, let me go back. Commissioner Stokes.
On this one, I think we're premature. Let's give it a little time. Let's find our property, figure out how we're paying for this, and then make our move. I think it's too premature to.
Exactly why you weren't getting a motion from me.
Commissioner, you don't have the floor.
I
Thank
just
you.
was,
Are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Well, I thought that would be part of the funding options. No?
Well, Madam Vice Mayor, what we'll do is, as that will be in the conversation on the funding options, we don't need any direction to initiate that process officially yet. We can initiate it once you make that decision on that's the pathway you want to choose to go
Oh.
forward.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Emmerich?
Yeah, my question is, I know these are time sensitive to get them on the referendum. How much time do we have to get it on the 2024? We got plenty of time for that, don't we?
Here in 3
Yes, sir.
months.
And my other question was, when we go ahead and put it out for referendum, we are going to need the funding resources on how we plan to use it, or the citizens are not going to have a way to weigh in on how, if any of their money is going to be paid for or not into these bonds, millage rate, whatever the case may be, to support the funding of this project. So, I mean, if we can hold off until we get those answers, I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't see a problem with wanting to put it out there either. So I'm on the fence. Either way you want to do it. I could say, yeah, let's go ahead and plan to do the 2024 referendum, but we're still going to need information to go along with that. So I think the rest of the commission here is a little bit more comfortable when we have some more answers.
We're okay with waiting, Commissioner
Okay.
Emmerich. Thank you.
I just think that would be a little bit better. So thank you very much.
And I have to concur, it just feels a little premature to me, and if we have plenty of lead time, then let's hold off on this one until we have more
Mhm.
pieces in place.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Is that it on your laundry list?
I think that is it.
Y'all need any more?
No, that's
You
it.
said no.
I am, here it is. Okay.
Thank you.
So we are on to final public comment. City Clerk, do we have any online? We do have one in-house, Mr. Doyle.
Again, when you're looking at the funding, a couple of things I think you guys gotta look at is the rates are going up right now, big time. Interest rates are going up, so when you do figure this out, you're gonna have to determine pretty quick, I think, on that, or you might even have higher rates next year. When it comes to the building and design, I would make the suggestion that the police chief go visit some of these bigger police stations around the state to walk around their facilities so he can give feedback to the architect or whoever designing the building, because they're gonna come with something. But I would say the police chief has to make sure it works for our town. And maybe your facility manager going with the police chief, whoever takes care of the buildings, to make comment to him about where utilities and all that stuff are. It will make a big difference, because like when I was here the other day, you were doing a project and you came back for 200 grand more because there was some changes or something. So it's gonna cost more if they don't have an idea, he doesn't have an idea what he likes or what will work for us. So to keep the prices down, it'd probably be well worth a rise. Just like you guys are going to do your seminar and work together, you might want to go look at some buildings and get an idea what's the pros and cons of the designs. Financing, again, I think you need to look at everything to keep the tax rate down. Look what you have on the books that you guys can sell to come up with some cash. You know, I think there's a gas tax in town. I think you guys, I'm not sure, you guys probably know better than me. I think there is, you can do a gas tax in town, or you already do it, no? 1% or something, I don't know. I don't know if you can do something on like that, so maybe the taxpayers, because that hits everybody who comes through town, not just the homeowners. I don't know if you are able to do stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure you can do something like that. And then I think you need to look at the impact fees. You know, I understand what we have in the accounts now, but can you adjust what I think impact fees in every town are a different amount. So if that tells me that different towns can charge different impact fees, and you're going through a growth spurt here, once this is over, those impact fees that you collect are going to go down. So maybe you should look at, if you can, look at to see, maybe go up for the police for now to get a little more money coming in. Because if you ask me, a lot of the builders right now, And a lot of the contractors, to what the woman said, they're ripping us off. They're making a lot of money. I was gonna put my own roof on my house because they want so much money to put the roof on. I mean, so these guys got the cash now. I hit them while they got the cash.
Thank you, sir. Mayor? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I just need the floor for 30 seconds before you adjourn. At the last commission meeting, we agreed to give a key and a proclamation to Gene Matthews at the March 14th meeting. I sent an email out that they will be unable to attend on the 14th, requesting that they work with us to try and find a new date. They are suggesting April 11th at 10 a.m. at the 10 a.m. meeting. So I just wanted to let you know if it's amenable. I know it's not on the agenda, but I'm just more letting you know that it won't be on the 14th, letting the citizens that all gave public comment, it won't be on March 14th. They won't be here. And they're requesting April 11th. So I will work with City Clerk in getting that proclamation completed. And just wanted to fill my fellow commissioners in on the new date.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. City Clerk, I understand you're already engaged with the family working on a date, and it will be on the agenda as soon as that date is confirmed. Great.
The date's
Thank you so much.
April 11th.
Thank
And
you.
Mayor, that'd be
Yes.
a good day. It's my birthday.
Ah,
April 11th is good with me.
it's a good day.
Yes.
Okay, well, on that note, I am adjourning the City Commission special meeting.
Woo-hoo.